All right, chapter 2 is pretty brief. We're going to talk about family, culture, and spiritual contexts. Family relationships with caregivers. How many of you have called mom, grandma, aunt, whomever is closest to you when you need information? You're not really sure what the answer is. Why is my child yellow? That was the first question I had from my pediatrician because I was young and we didn't have internet, and I just called the doctor and said, hey, he's yellow. And they're like, hey, it's okay. So there's got to be some relationship there that's going to influence how our beliefs in healthcare and our values. Maternal and child health outcomes are influenced by these beliefs. We can Google anything today with technology, but we need to also educate that not everything that you read or see on the internet is correct. The current emphasis is on wellness and empowerment for all families. Just think about that word empowerment. This gives people control over access to health care and their own lives initially. Excuse me. All right. The family has traditionally been viewed as the primary unit of socialization, a basic structural unit within a community. There's support systems for its members. It plays a pivotal role in healthcare decisions. So families are our target customer. So family-centered care is the type of delivery that we experience in maternal child nursing. There are a few different family organizational structures that we can look at. The traditional nuclear family, male and female, with children decreasing in number. Now we're seeing more of an extended family. We see multi-generational, lots of grandparents raising their grandkids right now. This makes an increased stress for these grown adults because they're raising children, and then they're also taking care of aged parents of their own. So there's different stresses for these different family styles. Just look over those: married, blended. I call that the Brady Bunch. Cohabitating parents. They're living with their biological parents or adoptive parents, but they've just never decided to get married. So take a look at these. All right. Family nursing. This is what we do when we incorporate these new babies that are added to the family. Some of the things that we have to think about are what ifs. What if the child is sick? What if there are abnormalities that weren't expected? They come home with special needs. How is this going to influence that family dynamic? We want to be sure and treat all families with respect and dignity. We share information in these ways: it's positive, useful, complete, accurate, and timely. And we always want to honor their choices. All right, here are some family theories. Family theories are important because when we treat children and newborns, we're not just treating one person, we are treating the whole family. You've got on page 20, table 2.1, some theories and models that are relevant to family nursing practice. When you go back to get your BSN and on with your master's, and if you go on to get a doctorate, you're going to have theories that are going to be a whole lot more important to you, because that's what's going to base your dissertations or whatever papers you have to write are going to be based on theory. There are some assessments that you can look at on page 19. These are approaches to understanding families and making assessments. These models are used for prevention rather than trying to wait and fix something, an illness or injury, once it's occurred. There's tools such as the CFAM, Calgary Family Assessment Model. It can guide assessment of the family unit. It observations are based on the nurse's perspective on that one. Structural would be the relationships among the members, the context of the family. Developmental would be the life cycle thinking back, what do you enjoy most about life? What's your regrets, your plans for getting older? Those kind of things. Functional would be evaluate the individual as they behave in relation to each other, their ADLs, their communication, problem solving. There are several different ways to represent a family graphically. There's the family genogram, a family tree over 3 generations. We can discover information like who has asthma in your family, who has heart conditions, miscarriages, diabetes, that kind of thing. And then there's the eco map on page 20, a graph of social relationships. The eco map gives more of a social relationship. It helps us identify resources and support systems. We can match people with, say, the food bank, or help them get on some kind of insurance assistance or something like that. Culture is influenced by religion, environment, and historic events. It plays a role in our behaviors and our patterns of human interaction, but it is ongoing development. It dictates our behavior, our interactions, what makes us human. Cultural knowledge. This is important for you to know this term. Beliefs and values inherited from our parents, grandparents, and this can be related to anything from food, language, religion, and health practices. One example would be that Chinese women are not supposed to leave the house for a whole month after giving birth because they think if they get in a draft, it's going to cause arthritis in their old age. There's other terms that you need to know here on page. Let me get my fingers working here. Page 20. See all those pictures, all those words in blue: subculture, acculturation, assimilation, ethnocentrism, cultural relativism. You need to know all those terms. Subculture is just a smaller group within a culture that retains certain characteristics not seen in the bigger culture. Acculturation, changes that occur within one group or among several when people from different cultures come into contact with one another. So with these guys, they retain some of their own beliefs and behaviors and adopt some from the dominant culture that they're in. Let me give an example of that one. I have some friends from India that are living in Dallas going to college. So mom still dresses in full Indian attire, and the girls now dressed in modest Western clothing. They don't really wear pants, but they do wear long skirts, and like I said, very, very modest. That would be an example of that. Assimilation. We need to know that word. We lose our cultural identity and become part of the dominant culture. Ethnocentrism. My way is best. Everybody knows somebody like that. Ethnocentric. Cultural relativism is the opposite of ethnocentrism. These guys understand other people's beliefs, and they're accepting without being judgmental. Cultural competence really just involves acknowledging, respecting, and appreciating ethnic, cultural, and linguistic diversities. We want to meet patients' needs in a respectful manner. We have to reflect on our own personal attitudes and beliefs in order to get to this. You can review page 23, table 2.2 for some cultural beliefs and practices. Those are pretty interesting, but I'm not going to read to you. You can read for yourself. We already talked about ethnocentrism and cultural relativism on the other page. All right, childbearing beliefs and practices. Communication, you guys are getting therapeutic communication in your mental health class right now. We have to understand the language. We have to be able to have interpretation done for us if we need to. We need translators, where it's no longer okay to get someone that you know that works on another floor to come over and translate. We have to use the applications that are provided for us by the facility. It's no longer okay to use a family member to interpret. Personal space, you all know what that is. If you've taken psychology, it's kind of that area around yourself that you're not going to let someone that, unless you're really close to them, get that close to you. Time orientation, a lot of people are influenced as far as time orientation. It's a cultural difference. Sometimes it's focusing on the past to keep up traditions. Sometimes it's just getting through today and not focusing on future goals at all. I know some people that their time orientation is, I have to pay this bill today and that bill tomorrow and the next bill the next day, and it's like they work so hard at just trying to pay these bills every month that seems like that's all they do. Family roles, expectations and behaviors associated with members' position in the family. Mom, dad, grandparent. There's distinct expectations for men and women determined by social norms. It's not always been okay for dads to come in for delivery. Used to, and back before I started even in nursing, it was really, when one of the nurses I used to work with, she thought was the most ridiculous thing. Why would I want the dad to be in there for delivery? He's just in the way. Some cultures don't want the dad in there. They're not expected, and they would be expected to not attend a delivery. It all has to do with the family roles and their beliefs and their culture. These bullet points are what we need to realize that makes us culturally competent. We have to recognize that disparities do exist, educate and promote healthy behaviors, apply abstract knowledge, communicate respectfully, recognize the importance of different styles, and anticipate addressing varied degrees of understanding. The goal here is to preserve and promote dignity. All right, spirituality in the family. This speaks to what gives us ultimate meaning, our purpose. It goes beyond body and mind. A religion can be organized form of spirituality, but you can be spiritual without being religious. Here are some different spirituality components, and you will even see in your nursing diagnosis, your NANDA, spirituality nursing diagnoses. Something else that really we need to remember is the pause. If you've never heard of that before, we take 1 to 2 minutes after the death of a patient to recognize a loss of life. We need to definitely debrief after that as well. All right, y'all turn to page 25 real quick because I want you to do this with me. Let's do a spiritual wellness self-assessment, box 2.3 at the bottom of page 25. All right, how do you describe your purpose in life? What activities do you regularly do that bring you joy? What goals do you have for 6 months from now? This may not be the best thing to do as a student, because if you answer most of these with an I don't know, because you're so busy, yeah, it may not be good to do that just yet. But if you answer most of these with anything except I don't know, you have a high spiritual wellness score. That's just for fun. There are different assessment tools on page 26, box 25. There's parish nursing through a church or a synagogue, faith community nursing. Just different things to look at as far as spirituality. There is a growing demand for home care in the community. Family birthing alternatives. We do have the birthing center there in Wichita Falls now. They don't use a lot of anesthesia. They don't usually give the children immunizations. You're not hooked up to a monitor 24/7. For some people, that's a great alternative. Shortened hospital stays. I was always ready to go home. Some people want to stay the maximum amount of time allowed. New technologies let us kind of keep some of these assessments at home. We can fetal monitor a mom at home now and have it transmitted to the physician. And a lot of these insurance companies will reimburse, but we still need some work on that part. Insurance I don't know, it gets more difficult every year, I think. All right, stay with me now. I told you it was short. I only have one more page to go over. Community care in the community. Home care in the community. I'll get it right in a second. We pretty much covered a lot of this already. Communication and technology applications. Requires care planning. Sometimes we can assess over the phone, discharge planning, those kind of things. Guidelines for nursing practice. We talked about AWHONN, and those are the ones that define home care and perinatal services. Selection and referral allows high-risk moms to be treated more regularly. Let's see, care management. First home care visit. Nobody's really sure that first visit, mom or the nurse. What are you getting into? What's, I've been, I don't know, some of you I'm sure worked home health. I recall going through and people's water pipes freeze this time of year. So there's dishes stacked in the sink, there's dishes stacked in the bathtub, there's stuff stacked everywhere, there's no place to sit. You really wouldn't want to sit sometimes, even if you could. There's different things to think about with home care visits. There is an assessment and diagnosis, box 2-6 on page 30. It's protocols for home visits. There may need to be special adaptations to do oxygen or certain types of machinery. Nursing considerations. We have to teach the family or mom maybe to administer medications, breathing treatments. They need to be able to demonstrate these techniques back to us. Maybe they need to learn CPR. Some more safety issues, and these are pretty much more directed to the nurse that's out there in the community. Self-awareness, being aware of what's going on around you, doing environmental assessment. Is it a safe place to be? What's the neighborhood like? What's going on with the family members, even if there's a group of people there? What do you do if someone at the house becomes aggressive? Can you visit in pairs? Can you take someone with you? Always have your cell phone and be able to call somebody if you need to. All right, last little bit, page 30. OSHA guidelines. We all know hand washing, we know hand hygiene techniques, we know PPE. This is all review for you, and that's it for chapter 2.